Alright, so this video is going to be a historical look at the minimum weight, aka straw weight, aka mini flyweight division, 105 pounds in professional boxing. So let me get to it. A similar weight class had actually started in 1968 in the Summer Olympic Games under the name light flyweight, which is not to be confused with the light flyweight division that we currently see right now in professional boxing as 108 pounds. But they called it light flyweight, and it was what was it, 48 kilograms, and which goes to about 106 pounds. So amateur-wise, 106-pound weight division was instituted in the 1968 Olympics. It was first won by Francisco Rodriguez of Venezuela, and along the way there's been a few pretty good fighters that passed through the Olympic Games, winning the gold medal at that weight class at 106 pounds at 48 kilograms. Namely, in the 1984 Olympics, there was Paul Gonzalez. Paul Gonzalez not only won the Olympic gold medal for light flyweight, but he won the Val Barker Trophy for basically the best boxer in all of the Olympics. It's the same award that a lot of people remember Roy Jones winning in the '88 Olympics after he had gotten robbed in the finals of those fights, of those Olympic tournament games. And for Paul Gonzalez to win the Val Barker Trophy, essentially the pound for pound like best boxer in the tournament trophy, is a big deal considering the fact that 1984 Olympic boxing team is one of the best teams that the United States ever produced. He had teammates such as Mildred Taylor, Pernell Whitaker, Mark Breland, Frank Tate, Henry Tillman, and Tyrell Biggs. And I mean, of course, the most notable names on there are probably Breland, Whitaker, and Taylor in terms of status, as far as the way people remember them, insofar as their just extremely high level of skill. So for Gonzalez to have surpassed them in the Olympic Games and managed to win the Val Barker Trophy is a pretty big deal, considering that. I mean, just showing that sometimes these guys at the lowest weights can show a hell of a lot of skill that they're extremely underrated for. Gonzalez eventually went on to become a professional bantamweight champion. He was a pretty tall guy for the weight class. I believe he was like 5'8", so I mean, extremely tall to be making 106 pounds. So he pretty quickly grew out of that weight class. Along with him, there was Brahim Asloum of France, who won the gold medal in the 2000 Olympics. Won it, in the 2000 Olympics, and then he also won the WBA light flyweight championship as a pro. So another guy who translated his amateur success into pro success. And then the most notable name probably recently would be Zhou Shiming of China, who won in both the 2008 and the 2012 Olympics. Of course, he hasn't come up with a championship at the pro level as of yet. He lost his first title shot against I'm Not Wrong of Thailand at flyweight, but we'll see how he progresses. See if he gets another shot. See if he manages to get it done. I'm pretty sure another title shot's looming. But that's pretty much it as far as the amateurs go in terms of notable names. Let me get to the pros. Professionals didn't actually start up the 105-pound weight division, straw weight, aka middle weight, aka mini flyweight, until 1987. It was in June of 1987 when Kyung-Yun Lee knocked out Masaharu Karakami to become the IBF's first minimum weight champion. So IBF was the first to institute the title. He was the first to win. Later that year, the WBC instituted their title. Hiroki Ioka became their first world champion. Ioka is now most notable for being the uncle and promoter of the current WBA regular flyweight champion, Kazuto Ioka. Kazuto Ioka actually also has world titles at 105 and 108 pounds as well, so he's a three-weight champion. And Hiroki Ioka was not only his promoter, his uncle, but an excellent boxer himself. The WBA's initial champion was Leo Gamez of Venezuela. Leo Gamez actually wound up becoming the first flyweight champion to win titles across four weight classes. First strawweight champion to win titles across four weight classes. He basically became what I kind of like to call the Lord of the Flies because he won a world title at 105, 108, 112, and 115. So effectively, every division with the name with the word flyweight in it, Leo Gamez won a world title in each one of them: 105, 108, 112, and 115. And then the WBO's initial champion was Rafael Torres of the Dominican Republic. He reigned for a little while there. Eventually, got knocked out by Chana Porpaoin, who himself was one of the elite fighters to first burst onto the scene at minimum weight. And along with Porpaoin, there's a number of fighters that have passed through the minimum weight division that have become pretty well known. There's two in particular that are the outright superstars of the division, though, since the division is a young division. It's only been around, of course, since '87. So, in spite of the fact that there's been a lot of champions, titles have changed hands pretty frequently. Partially due to the fact that some guys wind up moving up and out of the division for trying to get, more recognition as being a multi-weight champion or getting more money to fight at 108 or 112, where the talent pool tends to be a little bit larger. Simply because the guys are a little bit bigger, and so there's more guys to fight there, as well as just just like I mentioned before, legacy. The two most notable names of the 105-pound division are Ricardo Finito Lopez and Ivan Ironboy Calderon. Lopez being probably known for being effectively one of the most legendary fighters that Mexico's ever produced. Calderon for being one of the most legendary fighters that Puerto Rico's ever produced. And the two of them combined being probably the two most legendary fighters to ever grace the 105-pound division with their presence, to become world champions. Ricardo Finito Lopez was a master. 51-0-1. And he's, undefeated. He was capable of knocking guys out in the first round, as he did against Yamil Caraballo, as he did against, I think it was Myung Suk Park. I think I may be mixing him up with another guy from Korea, but I think it might have been Myung Suk Park that he knocked out in the first round as well. And he was also capable of outpointing you. And he was pretty much dominant in just about every fight he ever had. The only two fights that were ever close for Ricardo Lopez were his two fights with Rosendo Alvarez, who himself was another guy who's probably one of the baddest guys to ever grace the 105-pound division with his presence. Rosendo Alvarez is a huge puncher, one of the, arguably the biggest puncher to ever be in the division. A guy that could just crush guys with shots. He would fold guys up with body shots, knock them down, beat them up, and a lot of guys wouldn't be the same. Ricardo Lopez, getting back to Ricardo Lopez though, is he managed to, in spite of the fact that he wasn't able to unify all of the titles all at once, he was able to effectively defeat all of the guys who had held world titles while he was reigning. So, in spite of the fact that he managed to get the WBO, the WBA, and the WBC title, but never got the IBF, he fought pretty much everybody that was anybody at 105 pounds, either at the weight itself, or eventually he moved up in weight to 108 pounds, and he wound up fighting the guys that he had missed out on at 105 pounds after the fact, namely Ratanapol Sor Vorapin of Thailand, as well as Will Grigsby, as well as Lonnie Patello of South Africa. Lonnie Patello and Ratanapol Sor Vorapin are two more extremely talented fighters that managed to campaign at 105 pounds. Vorapin was a little bit of a shorter guy, a guy that could kind of tactically move inside, bob and weave, and just swarm you with shots. Big left hand. And as Lonnie Patello, a guy who was very tall, even taller than Lopez, because Lopez was tall for the weight himself at 5'5". Patello was 5'6", so he was even taller. He was a guy that a very awkward tall guy, long jab, good with the stick and move. But when it came to Lopez, anyway, it just wasn't enough. But it pretty much wasn't enough for anybody when it came to Lopez, because he was just that damn good. Ivan Calderon, On the other hand, as opposed to Lopez being like an all-around offensive and defensive master, Ivan Calderon was a lot more on the defensive side of things. He had a couple good knockouts early in his career with a little bit of a Mike Tyson-esque style, hence why they called him Iron Boy. But he started having a lot of hand problems, and so he switched up from being like a bob and weave inside guy to being a bit more of a stick and move outside guy, a guy that would make you give up your reach, pot shot you and then scurry away basically. He eventually had some tough fights a bit later in his career, but throughout most of his career he was pretty much dominant. He almost didn't lose a round for a number of years in the early and mid 2000s. And then he eventually, age eventually caught up to him. He moved up to 108 pounds. He was looking for bigger fights there. He was looking for what would have been big fights with the likes of Brian Valoria, Edgar Sosa, Giovanni Segura at the time. And eventually he got the fight with Segura, and Segura wound up knocking him out in the fight of the year of that year. I can't remember exactly which year that was. I think it was maybe '07 or '06 when they fought. But fight of the year, most definitely. Segura wound up knocking Calderon out. I believe it was in the 6th round. They rematched, and Segura knocked him out even quicker this time. I believe it was the 4th round that he took him out in the second fight. And then Ivan Calderon wound up going back down to 105 pounds and fighting against the guy who had become, well, there were a couple guys that had become the WBO champion in after Calderon had left the weight class. First was Donnie Nietes of the Philippines, who himself is another guy that's one of the current light flyweight champions, and he's undefeated. He's a guy that's looking to try and get in the Chocolatito sweepstakes soon. The second was, after Nietes moved up and vacated, was Raul Garcia Hirales. And then the third was Moises Fuentes, who managed to beat Raul Garcia and become the new champion. Moises Fuentes was another guy that was very, very tall for the weight class, a 5'6" guy. Ivan Calderon was only 5 feet even. So dropping down in weight to fight Fuentes as opposed to fighting Segura didn't necessarily do him a whole hell of a lot of good, because he was essentially fighting a guy that was just as big as Segura, just as powerful, and I mean, well, maybe not as strong physically, but making up for that lack of strength with quickness, because Segura was just a brutal guy. Fuentes a bit more of a technician with power, with explosive power. Of course, nowadays the 4 champions include Wenhang Manayoten of the WBC, as well as the WBC also has an interim champion too, knockout CP Freshmore. I mean, no, my bad. It's Wenhang Manayoten. Then the WBA, it's Byron Rojas of Nicaragua, one of Roman Gonzalez's stablemates. And the interim champion for the WBA is knockout CP Freshmore of Thailand. Manayoten of Thailand for the WBC. WBA regular is knockout CP Freshmart. For the IBF, you have Jose Argumedo, who managed to dethrone Katsunari Takayama, who was previously probably the #1 guy, if not for Heki Butler, who Rojas had dethroned recently in about a 25-1 upset that Rojas pulled off. And then Kosei Tanaka of the WBO actually just announced that he's vacating his belt. So the WBO belt currently is effectively vacated. So we may see some new blood in there. Another couple of contenders that are rising on the scene at 105 pounds is Saul Baby Juarez of Mexico. Very quick, explosive, kind of in and out. Maybe a little bit of a Gamboa type style. That's probably how I would describe him. He's an explosive guy, way on the outside, then all of a sudden he's in your grill, and little guy tries to use your height and reach against you by making you lean in. Then Ray Loretto, who's probably the biggest puncher of 105 pounds currently, another good fighter. And then you also got the likes of Carlos Buitrago, who recently lost to knockout CP Freshman in spite of the fact that it was a close fight. A very skilled technician for his sake. And then Heki Butler, of course, is still out there, unless he decides to move up in weight, which is possible, because they were saying that he had trouble making weight for Byron Rojas. So, I mean, that's just a pretty good overview of the division. Ricardo Finito Lopez versus Rosendo Alvarez, probably the biggest fight, as well as Ivan Calderon versus Ivan Calderon versus Moises Fuentes would probably be the other signature fight. But there's a number of signature fights. They're going to be in the description box. Check it out. And peace.